isibuko seMaswati.
A very good afternoon and a warm welcome back. My name is Lirato Mabilisa, and joining me in the studio is my co-host Nogwazi Dlamini and the sign language interpreter Nompumelelo Hadebi. A very good afternoon, Nogwazi.
A very good afternoon to you, Lerato, and of course a very good afternoon to our viewers at home. Welcome back to Home Study on Eswatini TV. We hope that you are looking forward to another day of learning on this Tuesday afternoon. So what does our day look like today, Lerato?
Okay, from 2 p.m. until 2:30 p.m. we have Siswati for the grade 1s and 2s. From 2:30 p.m. until 3 p.m. we have religious studies for the grade 3s and 4s. From 3 p.m. until 3:30 p.m. is religious education again for the grade 5s and 6s. From 3:30 p.m. until 4 p.m. is additional mathematics for the Form 1s and 2s. From 4 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. is English language for Form 4 learners. From 4:30 p.m. until 5 p.m. is physics for the Form 4 learners again. What does our social media look like today, Nogwazi?
Okay, everyone at home, a reminder that we are live right now on YouTube and of course on Facebook, so you can catch us on those platforms as well. And also just to remind you, do not forget to click on that YouTube subscribe button to subscribe, and just so that you know when we are live at 2 p.m. And of course, do not forget that we have a WhatsApp number, so you can use that WhatsApp number to ask any questions that you might have during that lesson. Please text us, do not call us. We ask you kindly because we will not be able to answer those calls. All right, up next, Lerato will be right back with you with the Siswati lesson for the grade 1s. We will be right back after this.
Did you think about what I said?
I did, and I've made my decision. I'm not going to wait for the courts to return my son to me. I'm going to go get him.
Ow, it hurts! Hey, I haven't even touched you yet. Stop being a baby. Kandimba! Get back here! Kandimba! Kandimba! Where are you?
What's with that face? You don't feel well? How did your interview go?
Bad. Really bad.
Well, I'd like to have a cup of coffee, please.
Because I want to help you out, I really can't.
Your father won't let you.
It's just that at this time, the sales of the store don't justify hiring another person, Auntie.
But if that's the issue, I could work on commission, Sarah. I already proved to you I'm a good salesperson.
Look, I'm really sorry, but jobs don't just pop up because people need them.
Maybe you should find someone who feels as lonely as you do. Someone who knows how to spoil you and likes it.
Ngikuvusele mbukeli ekhaya, ligama lami ngingilirato wakamabilisa, kanti kulesikhathi sanyalo ngihamba naye thishela wesiswati selibanga lekucala, thishela Nozipho Mabunza. Ngikuvusele thishela.
Yebo sisilirato unjani?
Ngiphilile unjani namhla?
Ngiyaphila nami.
Okay, ngicela ukuthi singakaqali uma nofaka umfutho khona sifundvo sethu stabang lesimnanzi namhla. Okay. Yini sifundvo sethu singani namhla futhi umfundi ubhekeke ukuthi afundzene kupheleni kwalesifundvo?
Sifundvo sethu sesilirato singemsindvo ng. Umfundi ubhekeke ukuthi akhone kulalela asho umsindvo ng.
Okay, ngaphandle kokuchitha isikhathi ungachubeka nesifundo sakho.
Asichubeke ke mfundzi sibuye ukuthi yini lebhekeke ukuthi ukhone kuyenda ekupheleni kwalesifundo. Ekupheleni kwalesifundo ke mfundzi ubhekeke ukuthi ukhone kulalela usho umsindvo ng. Kusho emagama lanemsindvo ng. Kufundza emalunga lanemsindvo ng. Kubhala umsindvo ng. Asesichubeke ke mfundzi sicale sifundo sethu. Siyakhumbula ke mfundzi sifunza ngabonkhamisa ebangeni lekucala. Nasikhuluma ngabonkhamisa ke mfundzi sikhuluma nga A, E, I, O, U. Labonkhamisa labasihlanu sibahlanganisa nalomsindvo ng. Bese sifunza sithi nga, nge, ngi, ngo, ngu. Asichubeke ke mfundzi sibuke nati titfombe. Asewusho ke mfundzi ukuthi ubonani kule titfombe. Sitfombe sekucala sikhombisa I, ngu, lu, be. Unake ke mfundzi umsindvo ng. Sitfombe sesibili ke mfundzi sitshengisa ba, nga, ni. Nalana mfundzi phindza unake yena phela umsindvo ng. Asichubeke mfundzi nato titfombe tetfu. Sitfombe sesithathu ke mfundzi sitshengisa I, ngu, bo. Nalapha mfundzi solo siyambona umsindvo ng uyavela. I, ngu, bo. Sitfombe setfu lesilandzelako mfundzi sikhombisa I, ngi, la, zi. Nalapha ke mfundzi solo ukhona umsindvo ng. I, ngi, la, zi. Ngicela umfundzi ekhaya aphakamise tandla takhe. Tandla ke mfundzi tinani tineti ngalo. Tinani ke mfundzi tineti ngalo. Nato ke mfundzi tingalo tinaye umsindvo ng. Asichubeke ke mfundzi sibuke ukuthi lamagama lebe sikhuluma ngawo ngale etitfombeni siwabhala njani nase siwabhala kahle. Sitawuchubeka ke mfundzi sifunze kanye kanye. I, ngi, la, zi. Lamagama ke mfundzi asishiyi tikhala nasiwabhala. Siyasonzelanisa emagama. I, ngi, la, zi. I, ngu, bo. I, ngu, bo. I, ngu, lu, be. I, ngu, lu, be. Ti, nga, lo. Ti, nga, lo. Ba, nga, ni. Ba, nga, ni. Siyachubeka ke mfundzi sinake yena umsindvo ng. Asichubeke ke mfundzi sibuke lokulandzelako. Kulamabito aletintfo lesicedza kutibuka ngumuphi umsindvo lovele kuwo onke lamabito. Yebo mfundzi wami ngumsindvo ng. Lo msindvo lona ke mfundzi nasiubita siwusho ngemandla noma siyagcizelela njengekuthi ingilazi ingilazi asesiqhubeke ke mfundzi sibuke nati letinye titfombe letinemsindvo ng ubonani ke mfundzi esitfombeni sakho sekucala siyabona lana mfundzi kunani kune ngelosi ingelozi ingelozi siqhubeke mfundzi sibuka isithombe sesibili nawubuka lesithombe sesibili mfundzi uyabona lana kunetimoto letimbili tishayisene letimoto lokho ke mfundzi wami sikubita ngekuthi ingoti ingoti siqhubeke ke mfundzi sibuke sithombe lesilandzelako lokusithombe sekugcina sona ke lesithombe lesi sitshengisa ingati 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 asiqhubeke ke mfundzi kukhona emabito lesiwabhala siwaqalise ngemsindvo ng ngemsindvo ng kepha lo msindvo lona sewubhalwe ngelihlavu lolu khulu sobhalwe ngelihlavu lolu khulu njengelibito lakho nje mfundzi sithi ngeti sithi ngeti lomunye lapho ekhaya mfundzi libito lakhe ngubani ngabisa ngabisa kanti ke sibongo sakhe sakabani saka ngozo ngozo lomunye uthi yena sibongo sakhe saka ngomane 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 asiqhubeke ke mfundzi lomunye umfundzi lapho ekhaya uhlala kuphi engololweni ngololweni kanti make wami uhambile yena waya kuphi eNgilandi Ngilandi lomunye umfundzi uthi yena uhlala kuphi ngonini engonini ungangeda ke nawe mfundzi takakho tibonelo kulamagama lalandzelako khetha ukipilitele emagama lanemsindvo ng khetha ukipilitele emagama lanemsindvo ng asesibuke ligama lekucala ke mfundzi ligama lekucala lithi lingangane lingangane ukhona yini lo msindvo kuleli gama leli mfundzi cha mfundzi wami alikho ligama lelilandzelako ingobiyane ingobiyane siyagcizelela yini lapha mfundzi yebo siyagcizelela ukhona umsindvo ng sichubeke mfundzi sibuka igama lelilandzelako lelithi mangoza mangoza ukhona yini lo msindvo lesikhuluma ngawo lapha mfundzi yebo mfundzi ukhona siyagcizelela nalana ukhona umsindvo ng sichubeke mfundzi sibuke igama lelilandzelako lelithi emanga emanga ukhona yini umsindvo ng kuleli gama lelithi emanga mfundzi? Cha, awukho. Sichubeke sibukele lilandzelako lelithi ingula. Ingula. Siyagcizelela yini lapha mfundzi? Yebo, siyagcizelela ukhona umsindvo ng. Sibuke igama lelilandzelako lelithi lilanga. Lilanga. Siyagcizelela yini lapha mfundzi? Cha, asigcizeleli kude umsindvo ng. Sichubeke mfundzi sibuke igama lelilandzelako lelithi lilungelo. Lilungelo. Ukhona yini umsindvo ng kuleli gama mfundzi? Cha, kude. Sichubeke sibukele lilandzelako lelithi ingubo. Ingubo. Siyagcizelela yini lapha mfundzi? Yebo, siyagcizelela ukhona umsindvo ng. Gama lelilandzelako lesekuligama lekugcina lithi ingelozi. Ingelozi. Siyagcizelela yini lapha mfundzi? Siyagcizelela ukhona umsindvo ng. Asichubeke ke mfundzi wami sibuke umsebenti. Thatha incwadi yakho likusasa liyakhanya. Incwadi yekusebentela uvule likhasi leli-14 wende umsebenti wesihlanu wekubhala umsindvo ng. Sengiphetha ke mfundzi. Asiphethe ngekubuka emagama lanemsindvo ng. Lesiwakhe ngekusebentisa lo msindvo ng. Sikhulumile ke mfundzi ngani ngoti. Ingoti. 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 Ingilazi. Ingilazi. Ingulube. Ingulube. Ngeti. Ngeti. Ngozo. Ngozo. Asichubeke mfundzi wami. Sengivalelisa ke mfundzi ngiyathemba ukuthi usijabulele sifundvo salomuhla. Losaka kuvalelisa nguthishela wakho wesiswati Nozipho Mabunza.
Sibonge kakhulu thishela Nozipho Mabunza, besimnanzi kakhulu sifundvo sakho. Ngiyathemba ukuthi mawubuya utawuphinza ubuye usifundisise sifundvo lesimnanzi njengalesi.
Yebo sisi.
Okay. Mangabe ufunza libanga lesithathu ngoma lesine ungayinzawo siyabuya khona manje nathishela wenu we-religious education.
Sinvusele maswati lamahle kanye nabo bonke bazalwane eveni laseswatini. Igama lami ngingayandazwane Health Promotions Officer walohlelo lolushasha lolubitwa ngekuthi yi-Faith and Community Initiative kafishane FCI.
Njengoba sisho sobe sikhuluma ngokusebenzisana nebandla bafundisi ngisho njalo namabandla anebantu akhiwa abantu lebafikayo lebangela lamaswati lesifuma ngalo. And kuyindlela nje kuba ngiyona leyo platform lenye lekubonakala ukuthi singayisebenzisa kwabonakala even then ukuthi singayisebenzisa ukuthi sikhone ukuthi sifike kubo bonke abantu.
Ikakhulu lubuke ukuthi bantu basitakale kwekuqala enzabeni yokuthi
kwanze umsebenzi wokuvikela igciwane le-HIV la kaNgwane.
But labantu bebathi disclose bona batisho bona sibanjani baphathekile bathantazelwe labo bantu labo nabativa bangcono bebasithatha hayi ngithiva sengiphilile mina asizange ngisho kanye ndakunika nje good example sibatshela sabayekela amaphilisi.
Namhla ke ngibheka ukuthata indvodza into ukuthata babe ukuthi asade isimo sakhe sengadi kumcoka ukuthi usade isimo sengadi kuze utokhombisa luthando lonalo emndenini wakho utokhombisa luthando lonalo nasemphakathini.
It is important every now and then to check, am I still in the receiving hand of God, or am I in the receiving hand of the lies from the enemy?
Salvation is free because Christ paid for everything, and that's true. But discipleship will cost you everything.
Love each other as if your life depends on it.
As a canvas reflects the nature of a personality or an artist, so creation teaches us about who God is.
We are made great by becoming small. We are exalted when we're humble.
Why should we pay our TV license?
The content on our local television is actually more up to date. The industry is enhanced.
It is a criminal offense not to pay your TV license and attracts a fine of 500 emalangeni or 6 months imprisonment.
And the industry is definitely blooming, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what we have for you. But we'll be right back just after the break, and we'll give you more of Miss V.
Pay my TV license. That's why I can enjoy the benefits of an enhanced industry and keep track with recent transformation.
Mommy, who paid for a TV license and what are they paying for?
The owners of TV set and a gadget with a tuner like DVD set have to pay.
Pay your TV license at NetBank with the details provided on screen. Or use your cell phone via the mobile money pay. You could also visit your nearest post office and pay there. Pay your TV license via Eswatini Mobile Imali. Any TV device retailer can purchase a license to trade. Pay your TV license and enhance the industry.
A very good afternoon and a warm welcome back, grade 3s. My name is Lirato Mabilisa, and with me today is your religious education teacher, Monde Dlamini. Also joining me in the studio is the sign language interpreter, Nompumelelo Hatebe. A very good afternoon, teacher Dlamini.
Afternoon, Larato. How are you?
I'm alright. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, so today's topic is the creation of the first man and the first woman. What would you expect the viewer to have learned by the end of the lesson?
By the end of today's lesson, the learner should be able to name the first man that God created, and also name the first woman that God created. Secondly, the learner should be able to describe how God created the first man and the first woman.
Okay, without wasting any time, please begin your lesson.
Thank you, Loretta. Good afternoon once more, dear learner at home. I hope you are all ready for today's lesson. Please do make sure that you have with you a pencil or a pen, a piece of paper that you're going to use for taking down notes, as well as the questions that I'm going to ask you today. And you should also have your RSV Holy Bible. But if you don't have your RSV Holy Bible, you can have any other English version Bible. As Larato stated when we started, today's lesson is on the creation of the first man and the first woman. So why are we having today's lesson? The rationale behind today's lesson is to bring awareness on the roles or the responsibilities given to Adam and Eve, as well as to draw moral lessons from their creation, such as helping one another. But most importantly, today's lesson is there to remind the learner of the importance of the family as a gift from God. Before we start our lesson, there are some keywords that I would love us to look at, and these keywords are creation, dust, rib, flesh, and nostrils. Those are the 5 keywords for today's lesson. Creation. What does the word creation mean? Creation means the process of bringing something new into existence, something that has never been there before. Our second keyword for today is dust. What is dust? Dust is fine, dry sand. We move on to the next keyword, which is rib. What is a rib? A rib is one of the caved bones of the chest. Now, my learner at home, if you might stand still for a minute and touch the sides of your body. When you feel your body, you might be able to feel some bones on your side. Those are the ribs. The second keyword, the fourth keyword, is flesh. Flesh refers to the soft, meaty part of an animal or person's body. That is what flesh is. And finally, our last keyword for the day is nostrils. A nostril is one of the 2 openings of the nose. I hope you were able to catch those keywords. Now we move on into our lesson. If you remember, my learners at home, in grade 1 and in grade 2, you learned that God created everything that we see in 6 days. And we find the story of creation in the book of Genesis chapter 1. Let us remind ourselves what God created on each day. On day 1, the Bible tells us that God created light. And then on the second day, He created the firmament, which is the sky and the heavens. And on the third day, God created the land and the seas and all the plants that we see. And on day 4, the sun, the moon, and the stars were created. Day 5, God created the sea and the sky creatures. These are the birds that we see in the sky and the fish that we see in the sea. And lastly, on the 6th day, God created all the land animals, including human beings. And He rested on the 7th day. So today, we will look at how exactly God created the first man and the first woman. The Holy Bible in the book of Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 and 18 tells us that God created the first man named Adam. And thereafter, He created the first woman named Eve. On your screens right now, there's a picture that is showing. What can you see in this picture? As for me, I can see a giraffe. There is the giraffe in the picture. I can also see a bird. There's the bird. I can see some grass. I can see a tree. I can see a monkey hanging on the tree. And lastly, I can also see a man who is standing amongst the animals. Now, look at this picture carefully because I am going to ask you a few questions. I hope you are ready for the questions. Okay. Question number 1. We are now going to talk about the picture that we've just seen. Be sure to tell the person sitting next to you the answers to the questions. Question number 1. Who is the man in the picture? I'll repeat the question. Who is the man in the picture? Our second question is, what could be the name of the place you see in the picture? And the last question is, who created the man and the things that we see in the picture? Okay, back to our lesson. The answer to the first question, who is the man in the picture, is Adam. Adam is the man that we are seeing in the picture. And Adam, together with all those things we are seeing, are in the Garden of Eden. And lastly, I asked you, who created the man and the things that we see in the picture? And if you remember in our introduction, we said that the Bible tells us that God created everything that we see. So, those are the answers to the questions that I asked. If I may refer you back again to the first lesson that you had in grade 1 and in grade 2, you remember that we said when God was creating everything that we see, He spoke the words, "Let there be," and everything else came into existence. For instance, He said, "Let there be light," and the light was there. "Let there be the sun," and the sun came into the sky. "Let there be fish," and there were fish swimming in the rivers. But how did God create the human being? Did He also speak? Let's find out how God created man. Okay, if we read in our Bibles in the book of Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, the Holy Bible tells us that, "Then the Lord God formed man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." I'll read that again. "Then the Lord God formed man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." Now, my learner at home, I'm sure that you or your friends have at one point used clay to mold something. You might have molded a dolly, or you might have molded an animal, or anything of your choice. And after you were done molding that thing that you made, you put it there and it was just standing still or sitting still. It couldn't move, it couldn't talk, it couldn't do anything. In the same way, after God formed man from the dust, man could not do anything because he was not yet a living being. So, after God had finished molding man with his hands, He went and then He breathed the breath of life into his nostrils. And after God had done that, Adam became a living being. That is how he became a man. He started to do all the things that you and I can do because God had breathed His life into him. And now we are also told that God created Adam to till. The word till means to look after and work in the Garden of Eden. So that is why God created Adam. To look after and work in the Garden of Eden. Let's move on. Now, God had created Adam and He placed him in the garden to look after the garden. And all the other animals that were in the garden had somebody to talk to. They had a friend. The zebra had another zebra to talk to. The elephant could talk to the lion because they were all animals. The birds could sing together and everybody could get along. But Adam was not happy at that time because he did not have somebody to talk to. Adam was lonely and he became sad. Now, when God saw Adam being sad and lonely, he decided to make him a friend so that he wouldn't be sad anymore. That is why God created the first woman. So we're going to now look at how God created the first woman. Because if you remember, with the first man, we said God took dust from the ground and he formed it with his hands, and then when he had done, he breathed his life into the nostrils of Adam and he became a living being. So we want to find out now, did God do the same thing when he was creating the first woman? Let us look at the Bible and see what it tells us. The creation of the first woman. God created Eve because he saw that it was not good for Adam to be alone. God said he would make Adam a helper to help him look after the garden and to keep him company. And when God had done that, they became the first family. How did God create Eve? If you open your Bibles in the book of Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, and also verses 21 to 23, the Holy Bible tells us that, so God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and while he slept, God took one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the Lord God made the rib he had taken from the man into a woman and brought her to Adam. I'll read that verse again. So God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and while he slept, he took one of his ribs and closed up its place with flesh. And the Lord God made the rib he had taken from the man into a woman and brought her to Adam. So we can note the difference now from the creation of the first man to that of the first woman. On your screens right now is a picture. If you look at this picture, we can see Adam and Eve. There is Adam and there is Eve. They are in the Garden of Eden. I'm going to draw a little heart to represent love, because you can see the two of them are happy in the picture. So this reminds us why we should appreciate family, because from the story we have heard today, that when Adam was alone, when he didn't have a friend, he was sad and lonely. And after God created Eve and brought Eve to Adam, Adam was happy because now he had a friend that he could talk to. And not only that, he also had somebody to help him to look after the Garden of Eden. So from the story, Adam can now be said to represent the father in the family. The father takes care of the family and looks after everyone in the family and makes sure that everything is okay. And then we have Eve, who is like the mother now. Eve helps Adam to look after the family and to take care of the home. So therefore, we should always thank God for the gift of family, because family is very important. Okay, we'll now look at the different characters in today's story. Remember, every story is made up of characters or people or animals that are found in that story. So the characters in today's story are God. God is the first character in our story. If we look at our story, God can be described as somebody who is all-powerful, present everywhere, and the creator of everything that we see. Then we have Adam. In the story, Adam is the first man and the first human being to ever be created on earth by God. We see him taking care of God's creation. And the third character in our story is Eve. Eve is the first woman, and she was created to be a helper to Adam, to help Adam look after the Garden of Eden. Remember, I'd asked you to get a piece of paper and a pen so that you'll be able to take down some questions as we go through the lesson. I'm now going to ask you a few questions from today's lesson. I hope you can write them down and also be able to answer them at the end of the lesson. The first question for the day is, name the first man. Name the first man. And this question is worth 1 mark. The second question is, who was Eve in the story? That question is also worth 1 mark. The third question I'm going to ask you, my learner at home, is where did Adam and Eve live? And that question is also worth 1 mark. And question number 4, how was the creation of Eve different from that of Adam? I'll go through the questions for the last time. The first question is, name the first man. Question number 2, who was Eve in the story? Third question, where did Adam and Eve live? And the last question is, how was the creation of Eve different from that of Adam? I hope you're able to take down those questions, my learner at home. I'm now going to give you answers to the questions that we've just looked at. The first question was, who was the first man? I hope you also gave the same answer as the one that I have. The first man was Adam. Very good. Question number 2 said, who was Eve? From the story that we read from the Bible, Eve was the first woman. The third question I asked you was, if we go back to the question, where did Adam and Eve live? And the answer to that is that Adam and Eve lived in the Garden of Eden. And the last question was, how was the creation of Eve different from that of Adam? How was the creation of Eve different from that of Adam? And the answer to that question, my learner at home, is that God used a rib taken from Adam to create Eve, while God made Adam from the dust and breathed life into him. God used a rib he had taken from Adam to create Eve, while God made Adam from the dust and then breathed his life into him. We have now come to the end of our lesson, but before we do that, I would like for us to go over the lesson one more time. So, in today's lesson, we have covered that God made Adam from the dust and breathed life into him. So after God had formed Adam from the dust, he then breathed his own life into Adam, and Adam became a living being. Secondly, we also learned that God created Eve, the first woman, from a rib he took from Adam. And that God created Adam to look after the land. The land in this case is referring to the Garden of Eden. And God created Eve because he saw that it was not good for Adam to be alone. So he made him a helper. The reason why God created Eve was because it was not good for Adam to be alone. So he made him a helper to help him look after the big Garden of Eden, as well as to keep Adam company so that he would not be sad and alone. That is the end of today's lesson.
A great lesson indeed, Teacher Dlamini. I really enjoyed today's topic on creation, and we're hoping that you're going to come again and give us another interesting lesson.
Okay, Lorato, I'm confusing you with Nogwasi, but I'm sure you're used to it. Okay, that's it for today, my learner at home. I hope you're able to learn something new, and that everything that we've learned today, you're not going to forget it, and you're going to remember it until the next time we meet again. Do have a lovely day, and see you next time.
Okay, see you next time. Grade 5s and 6s, you are up next with Mr. Mangoba Mkonda for a religious education lesson. There's a lot of religious education going on today. So grade 5s and 6s, get ready. We will be back after this infomercial.
Better Health, Better Life. It's another season on your favorite program, Better Health, Better Life, here on Eswatini TV.
Ayinibingelele kunemukele babukele emakhaya kulolu hlelo i-Better Health, Better Life. Lona thulula hlelo ngunokuphila masangana.
It's all about our health, our better health today, and our better life tomorrow. In the midst of this global pandemic coronavirus, Better Health, Better Life brings you closer to your health professionals.
Nangabe nje ngidla indvo legcwele mafutsa lendvo ngidla
so siyakhuthaza ukuthi lala abahlala nalala banashukela abafunde nabo ngaloshukela.
Watch out for another fresh season of Better Health, Better Life on Eswatini TV. It's getting bigger and better every season. This season with COVID-19 is a must to watch for everyone in every home. Better Health, Better Life, your gateway to a healthy living.
At this point, you shouldn't feel as if you do not have it. You have it for sure.
Find something you like doing.
Yeah.
Say invest in yourself.
I am your host, Tianza Dlamini, and you're watching Fame Unfiltered. Good night and God bless.
Usiseka, uvuseleleke, wakheke emoyeni ngemculo wetenkolo bahlabeleli balapha eSwatini. Sikulethele abahlabeleli abadala nabo lapha sikhula emculweni wetenkolo bahlabela bukhoma lapha eSwatini. Siphinde sixoxisane kabanti ngalaba kwentako emsebentini wabo wokuhlabelela igospel konke kungidinisa simakathe. Ungaphutheka ngomculo wegospel khona lapha eSwatini TV. Praise to God be the glory.
Welcome back, grade 5s and 6s. My name is Lirato Mabilisa, and with me in the studio is the sign language interpreter Nomcebo Dlamini and your religious education teacher Mancoba Mkonda. A very good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, Lirato. Afternoon to the night home.
How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm alright. Thanks for asking. So today's topic is people's authority over creation.
Yes.
Okay, what would you expect the viewer to have learned by the end of this lesson?
Okay, thank you, Lirato. Lenai Tom, it's a lovely afternoon. At the end of the lesson, I would expect you, or before we start with what we are expected to learn, you must have with yourself a pencil or anything else to write about, or a paper, ruler, or any scrap paper that you may have or scrapbook that you may use to write on. And before the end of the lesson, or at the end of the lesson, you should know how to define authority, explain the importance of being responsible with our creation as human beings or as people, since God trusted us with the creation that He created. I think that's all for now.
Okay. Without wasting any time, you may begin your religious education lesson.
Okay, thank you, Lerato. Welcome back, Lenai Tom. I will be taking you for our lesson today, which is people's creation. People's authority over creation. As you can see here, my picture. There is a picture showing different forms of creation which was created by God. There is a tree, there is a bird, there is a deer here, which is a deer. There is a duck here, there is water, and there is the sky. So we're going to be looking at people's authority over creation. Our objectives today are, before or at the end of this lesson, you should be able to define authority, explain man's authority over creation, explain the importance of taking care of creation, man's authority over creation, explain the importance of taking care of creation. Since it is important for you, Lenai Tom, as you grow up, to know that it is important to take care of our creation, which God has entrusted us to take care of. Let us move on. Prerequisite knowledge, which is prior knowledge, if I may call it that. You might have the knowledge and understanding of how God created everything, which is nature around us during the 6 days. We're going to look at the 6 days on what was created on each day, just as a reminder, Lenai Tom. How humans were created differently from all of God's other creation. How human beings were created differently, meaning humans were created in a different way from all of others of God's creation. Now, keywords of this lesson are authority, creation. There are only these two. Authority, Lenaitom, means the power to make decisions. Or someone else might say authority is when someone has power over something. You might have authority to decide. You might have authority over a particular something or someone. Creation, the act of creating. Now, especially the act of bringing the world into ordered existence. Creation might mean a lot of other things, but us here in religious education, we are solely based on, or are focused on creation in the aspect of bringing the world which we are in into existence. How did the world come into being? There are many other versions. Scientists talk about evolution. We started from being apes, and then we evolved to be who we are today. But us here in under religious education, we are looking at creation under the biblical perspective. We believe that God creating everything that is around us, and us as human beings, we are created by God. We did not evolve. Let us move on. Rationally, to create an understanding on, rationally meaning the reason of you and I having this lesson today. The responsibility to create to create an understanding on the responsibility God gave to people to look after his creation to the learner in relation to biblical teachings. I might emphasize this learner at home just as a reminder. When I'm saying biblical teachings, I'm just trying to bring you into understanding that we are solely based on the Bible. We are not generalizing everything. Everything we are teaching or everything we're learning about, we are taking it from the Bible, since our religious education is only Christian based and it is biblically based. So that is why I'm saying biblical teachings. You might have your own understanding of a particular topic, but whensoever you are answering a religious education question, take it from the Bible to show the marker that you understand the Bible and you have deeper knowledge of the Bible. Now let us move on. Your parents, as an introduction, your parents usually tell you what to do. You are expected to obey them then at home. For an example, suppose father expects him to do house chores on Sunday, to do work like sweeping the yard, cleaning the house, cleaning the dishes, cleaning your father's car or your mom's car, or whatsoever work that you do around home just to help around at home. So those are sometimes you do it under the instruction or under the guidance of your parents. Why? Because your parents have authority over you. They are the ones who are liable for you. They are the ones who are taking care of you. They are the ones who look after you in all your young lives. Now, this is because your parents or guardian have authority over you since you are still young to decide for yourself. So they still have a responsibility to care for you. Even if your parents do have authority over you, but they still have a responsibility to care for you. Not only having authority, but they are also responsible to look after you. Take care of your medical needs, take care of your educational needs. All your basic needs have to be taken care of by your parent or your guardian or whomsoever elderly person that you live with. Now, likewise, God gave people, meaning me and you, us, authority over nature. Where did I get this, Leonard Tom? Genesis 1, verse 28. God said, fill the earth and subdue it. God created human beings and he said to them, fill the earth and subdue it, meaning overcome it, rule it, and everything that is on the earth you must rule it. In this lesson, we will learn about people's authority over creation. Although we have biblical evidence that God gave us authority over creation, but God also expects us to be responsible with or on how we take care of the creation that he trusted us with. Now, just to as a reminder, in previous grades, especially maybe grade 3, you learned about the creation of human beings. You learned on what God created on each day. All of those things are also responsible, or all of that knowledge that you learned in the previous grade, which is grade 3. It might be a long time ago, but it is important for you to know in order to understand our today's lesson. On day 1, God created light. He separated day and night. Day 2, firmament, meaning sky and heavens. Day 3, dry ground, land, earth, vegetation, and sea. Now, day 4, the lights in the firmament, meaning sun, moon, and sky. And star. Now, day 5, the sea, animals, meaning fish and birds. All of that is God's creation. God created everything before he created human beings on the last day, which was the 6th day. Why? Because all of what God was creating from day 1 to day 5 was in preparation to have a place where God is going to place these human beings in a clean and neat and conducive environment, or a welcoming environment. Now, land animals God created, and he created what? Human beings, and entrusted them with all that he had created before, which we call creation. Let us move on. Now, man's authority over creation. What does God say about man's authority over creation? God created man, Adam, and a woman, named her Eve. After he had created animals, plants, and other things in nature. That is found in Genesis 1, verse 27. He created them in his own image, meaning we are created in the image of God. We are all godly beings. We are all created in the image of God. No matter how we are, no matter how disabilities or any other difficulties we may have, we are all created in the image of God. That is found in Genesis 1, verse 27. He then gave them authority over all other things in creation. That is found in Genesis 1, verse 28. People have authority to rule over nature and make decisions about it. However, they also have responsibility towards nature. Mind you, learner at home, take note, you have responsibility, not just to misuse our natural environment. They have to make sure that creation is cared for well. We need to make sure that creation is cared for well. How, Mr. Mkonda? We are going to look at that in our next lesson. But today I want to bring your attention to the understanding that we do have a responsibility over creation. We must not misuse our natural environment in any way that we feel like. In Genesis 2, verse 15, God instructs us to take care of nature. Here is a biblical evidence. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to till it and keep it, to work on the land and keep it. When you keep something, you make sure it is in the right condition so that the next generation, the other people who come after you, may find it in a well condition so that they may also use it and leave it for the upcoming generation, and so on and so forth, from generation to generation. If you misuse the creation or the natural environment, the other people who come after you may not be able to use it or may suffer. Now, here is a picture of mine showing man's authority over creation. Here is Adam. Here is Eve. Here are some animals. Some of the animals, they are not all there. We have a lion here. We have elephants. We have another lion. We have a bird over the sky. And we have trees and on all forms of vegetation. We have water, we have the sky. Here is some fruits here. God placed them in the environment which is clean and neat. And you can see how this environment is. There are animals, there is water, there is vegetation. Everyone, including the animals and the vegetation and the human beings, are catered for. So they are all living in one environment in a harmonious way. Here is a picture showing fish under the seas. This does not mean that you must take care of only land animals. We need also to take care of animals which live in water, or we sometimes call them aquatic animals. So here there are fish here. We need to take care of these animals as well as human beings, since they are also part of God's creation. How are we going to take care of them? By keeping the seas clean, by keeping our waters clean, not dumping any dirt or any forms of toxic chemicals in flowing rivers and dams, because the fish under those waters, the vegetation under those waters will suffer, because they are also part of God's creation. This does not mean we need to take care of what we see on our daily lives. No, we also need to take care of animals which live on seas or in water, like rivers or dams. Moving on, Lena at home. Importance of taking care of creation. It is important for us, Lena at home, to take care of creation. Why? You might ask yourself that question. By taking care of God's creation, we recognize and honor Him as our creator. God is our creator. Thus, bringing glory to Him. That is found in Genesis 1 verses 31, whereby it reads that God created everything, and as you are seeing what He has created, and He saw it as not just being good, but being very good. So here, God sees the environment or the natural creation that is around us as being very good. And He expects us to keep it in that condition, because we are stewards, because we are trustees. He entrusted us with keeping the natural environment in a right condition. So keeping God's creation, taking care of God's creation, helps us to recognize and honor Him as our creator, thus glorifying Him. Number 2, we also care for the creation because God commanded us to. In Genesis, that is found in Genesis 2 verse 15. Till it and keep it. Now, theologians refer to this verse here. People who study the Bible refer to this verse here as the first commandment. The first commandment being, you might recall that there are 10 commandments. But before the 10 commandments, God had written and gave them to Moses. There is a command which was notified by the theologians, people who study the Bible, as being this commandment, being this verse here, till it and keep it. It is classified as being the first commandment. Now, if the first commandment is for us as human beings to take care of God's nature, to take care of God's creation. Now that tells you a lot, Lena and Tom, that how important it is to God for us as human beings to take care of His nature, because this is what He created for us, and He placed us in a good environment for us to live in. So this is recognized as the first commandment: till it and keep it. What do you keep? The environment, be it the soil, be it the vegetation, be it the animals, be it or the sky or whatsoever that is natural and created by God. Some of God's creation gives us important resources such as food and shelter. We get food from vegetation, we get food from animals, we also drink water. Water is our necessity for our livelihood. We also need shelter. We get shelter from vegetation. We get wood, which we use to make our furnitures, to build our households, whereby you roof your house. You use wood, like planks and all the likes. You need to have shelter. You cannot just live under trees. You need shelter. So we grow these trees and then we get wood from them, which we use to make our households. We grow vegetations like cabbages, oranges, fruits like oranges and all the likes, so that we have food as well, because we need food. That is found in Genesis 9 verse 3. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. So some of God's creation gives us important resources such as food. There are many other resources you might think of that we get from God's creation. Everything that we have, even the clothes that we are wearing, they come from God's creation. Number 4, we deserve to live in clean environment. We take care of our God's creation because we must live in clean environmental conditions that uphold our God-given dignity, our God-given status. We have to be clean at all the times. We have to live. No one wants to live in a dirty environment. No one wants to live in a dirty household. We all want to live in clean surroundings. So that is found in the book of Numbers 35 verses 33 to 34. You shall not defile the land, meaning you shall not corrupt the land. You shall not destroy the land in which you live, in the midst of which I dwell. Meaning God is still with us. Remember, you will learn about the Trinity of God. That is another lesson. But I might touch that God is in 3 forms. We believe that God is with us in spirit. God is with us in the Holy Spirit. So when it says that in the midst of which I dwell, meaning that God is still with us. He is still with us in the creation in which He left us in. So we have to take care of the creation that God entrusted us, not just because we live here alone, but we also live with God. Now, here are people taking care of creation. You can see these children here. They are planting a tree. You can see this girl here. She is feeding this animal. What is this animal called, Lenite Home? Yes, Lenite Home. This animal is called an impala, and she is feeding it so that it can grow. These learners here on my left hand side, they are growing the tree. Trees are important because they give us oxygen. They take the carbon dioxide that we breathe out, and they give us oxygen. Imagine you cannot live with a second or a minute without breathing. Imagine if there was no oxygen at all in the atmosphere. So we wouldn't survive. So trees take up the carbon dioxide which we breathe out, and they give us in exchange the necessary gas that we breathe in, which is called oxygen. So they are important for our survival as well. So I hope you can see how important it is for us to take care of God's creation. Now, Lenite Home. Assessment. Who gave people authority over creation? Why should people take care of nature? Give 2 reasons. Was it necessary for God to give man authority over all His creation? Support your answer. Who gave people authority over creation? Why should people take care of nature? You give 2 reasons. You remember I gave you 4 reasons, but I'm asking for only 2. Was it necessary for God to give man authority over all His creation? Support your answer. This is an evaluation question. The question 3 is an evaluation question whereby you are supposed to give your stand, and then you support. Thereafter, you give another perspective, another view of point, whereby you also allow another perspective, because you are not expected to give one perspective at a time. Now, here are the answers. God is the answer for number 1. The question was, who gave people over creation? The answer is God. Number 2, why should people take care of nature? give 2 reasons. Reason number 1, to recognize and honor God. Reason number 2, God commanded people to care for his creation. God commanded people to care for his creation. It gives us important resources such as food. We deserve to live in a clean environmental conditions. I've given you 4 reasons, but I only asked for 2. Now, question number 3 was it necessary for God to give man authority over all his creation? Support your answer. Now, I, myself, Leonard Tom, I might say, yes, it was necessary for God to give man authority over all his creation because they were created differently from all of creation and they know right from wrong. You can see here I have taken a positive stand of view, yes, and then I also inserted the question, the part of the question which is it was necessary for God to take or to give man authority over all his creation. And here is where I start to answer the question. Now, it is necessary for you to insert this topic sentence, if I may call it that, and then you insert the conjunction here, which is because, and then you give your view of point, which is they were created differently from all of creation and they know right from wrong. I have taken this view of point or this answer of mine from the biblical side. I was not too general. God, we have biblical evidence that man was created different from all of God's creation. I am not too general. I am biblical based with my answer. However, someone else might say no. It was not necessary for God to give man authority. It is the negative now. No. So I'm going to say it was not necessary for God to give man authority over all his creation, conjunction, because God being the Almighty God, he was going to be able to take care of his own creation without any assistance. We know God being Almighty, so he's able to do his own, or he's able to take care of his own creation. He's able to do anything he wants with his own creation. So here, the first one is 2 marks. The second one is 2 marks, giving you a total of 4 marks. Moving on, Lenai Tom. In conclusion, in today's lesson, we have learned that authority means having power to make decisions about something. God gave people authority to rule nature. Authority goes with a responsibility or with responsibility. Thus, it is important for people to take care of God's creation. Although we may have authority, but we are responsible for God's creation. Now, Lena Tom, I'd like to end here for today. I hope you'll join me in the next lesson, whereby we'll be looking on how to take care of God's creation. How God wants us to take care of God's creation. Animals, vegetation, and the environment. And according to those 3 classes, we'll be looking at how to take care of each of those forms of God's creation. Let me take back everything back to Lerato.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkonda. It was a very interesting lesson and we learned a lot about taking care of creation today. Thank you for the lesson.
Thank you. Thank you, Leonardo.
Okay.
Thank you to Lenai Tom.
Okay. From 1s and 2s, I hope you are ready for your lessons because up next, Nogwazi will be back with the additional mathematics teacher. So do not go anywhere. Nogwazi will be back after this infomercial.
Buhle bethu imvelo yethu, buhle bethu tindzawo tethu, Indalo yashada nemasiko kuhle kwethu. Kuvakasha kwethula umthwalo emahlombe ethu. Hloma ngwane vuka uvakashe indlela uyikhombe etindzaweni tethu. Temvelo nembukiso ungcebeleke uthathe netitfombe. Lalela ke nangu sonkondlo waseswatini akutekela ayibeka indzaba ayihlela kuhle kwelijaha lishela ngiyakutshela diningi tindzawo longativakashela hloma ngwane vuka uvakashe la phana lapha kuvakasha kuyayelapha enhlitiyo kanye nemicondvo kuyawuphumuta kuqinisa buhlobo nebungane losebundenga ndenga with a trip to Mantenga Falls or a sip among friends of Sibebe Brew on Sibebe Mountain, or perhaps your cup of tea is backpacking and horse riding, sightseeing the seamless streams and springs that stream across the gorgeous valleys of the mountainous kingdoms of Eswatini. We have you covered. Hloma ngwane vuka uvakashe buhle bethu yimvelo yethu buhle bethu ngabuthola nasebantwini bethu.
The change in technology, out-of-home digital media is designed to grab the attention of people who are always on the go. You can now watch your favorite show, Usile Breakfast Show and Tinzaba at 7 on your favorite YouTube channel.
It's simple. You can stream these shows by following these quick, easy steps. Number 1, open YouTube. Number 2, search for Eswatini TV and click on Eswatini TV. Number 3, after you had entered on Eswatini TV, look for Tinzaba or KPS. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, subscribe and ring the bell button to get notifications of our video uploads and streams. And lastly, enjoy the stream. Stay home and watch Eswatini TV. Stay safe.
At it again, once again, what it is, it's the biggest, the dopest, the freshest. The biggest, the dopest, the freshest, the sickest. It's the illest. Illest. It's the biggest, the dopest, the freshest, the sickest, the illest. Entertainment on your TV screens is TBD. Welcome to it, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Beatdown. Yo, 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 yeah, yeah.
Hi guys, this is Lyra and you're watching The Beatdown.
A very good afternoon to our viewers and a very warm welcome back to those who had been joining us from 2 p.m. This is Eswatini TV and you are still tuned in to Home Study. My name is Nogwazi Dlamini and right now we are doing additional mathematics for the Form 1s. Am I right?
Form 1s and 2s.
For the Form 1s and 2s with Mr. Stembiso Dlamini. As you can hear, he's already with me in the studio. How are you doing this afternoon, sir?
No, I'm very well, Nokwazi. It's nice to be here.
It's good to be back, ne?
Yeah. After a long layoff.
After a long layoff. So today we're doing statistics, right?
Yeah, very much. Right.
What are you expecting your Form 1 and 2 learners to have learned by the end of the lesson?
Now, at the end of the lesson, we expect these learners to be able to calculate what we mean a mode, what we call a median, and also it's a mean, mode, median, and then mean.
Okay, all right. From threes, from ones and twos, I hope you are ready for your lesson. I think you may begin, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Nogwazi. Dear learners at home, maybe we should start by looking at why we learn statistics. I think that's very important for us. Now, it is a crucial process. It is a crucial process behind what we make discoveries, make decisions based on data. That's very important. And then also make what we call predictions. It is a very, very important aspect in every organization, even in the country as a whole, to help make decisions based on data. So we make decisions based on data. For example, right now we're in the COVID-19 era. The country, through the Ministry of Health, is making decisions, and these decisions now are based on statistical evidence. So every day we are getting an update on how on the figures on COVID-19, and then the Ministry of and the Ministry of Health is making decisions based on that statistical evidence. It is also, statistics are also mainly used in research. There are statistical packages that are there which are used in research. So this is a very, very important topic in our everyday life. Now, the objectives of the lesson, I think we have stated that. Maybe one should add that we also expect learners to be able to present data by means of a frequency table. We will be calculating a mean from given data, a mode, and of course a median there. So we shall be doing those 4 things in today's lesson, and I hope learners will be following very well. And maybe as an introduction now, we can begin by saying statistics is concerned with what we call scientific methods now of collecting, classifying, presenting, and analyzing data. That's very important, dear learners at home. And then data, maybe we should explain what we mean by data. It is information presented by means of figures, pictorial, graphical, or tabular form as stated here. We shall be seeing some of these things as we progress with the lesson. Now, data, it is also worth mentioning that data is gathered by means of a survey or measurement. So that's very important, especially in research as mentioned there. And then the quantity that is a subject of the survey is called a variable. So that's also very important. Now, examples of variable, for instance, we can talk of height, as mentioned here, age, and also marks. Those are examples of what we call a variable. So it is the subject of the survey. Now, we can look at an example now of something that you are familiar with now. Whenever your teachers are giving you a test, there will always be marks. So 5 learners here got the following marks: 65, 87, 78, 58, and 92 in a mathematics test. So the variable, as mentioned here, we want to emphasize on the variable. The variable here is the test mark. Okay, so it is the subject of this data here. So the data represent the distribution of marks in the test. Okay, so by distribution, this data that is presented here, we call it a distribution. So whenever the teacher is giving you the test results now, it's going to give you a distribution of the test marks in the test. So you should be familiar with the word distribution here. It just means it is also another way of saying it is the data of what we are talking about. And then now, when you look at data now, there are what we call now central tendencies here, and these are the mode, mean, and median, which we shall be discussing on how we calculate these 3 central tendencies now in a given data. Maybe the first thing we can start discussing here is what we call the mean. The mean is nothing much, dear learner, but it is an average. So, for instance, whenever we are given a test now, there should be an average mark in the test. Okay, so it is kind of an average. So the mean of a distribution of data, it is the sum of the variables over the number of values in this data. so that now we can summarize, because here in mathematics we then summarize. Now we can write this by means of a sentence, but then now we can also have a formula here to summarize what we have just mentioned above here, to say the mean is equal to the sum of values over the number of values. Maybe to illustrate what we are talking about, we can look at an example here to say now we are given a set of numbers now 17, 13, 20, 14, 11 now, and then we are to calculate the mean of this given set of numbers. Now remember, we have a formula here. We have to add all the numbers to get their sum. That is the sum of the values now, the numerator part of the formula there. So we need to get the sum of the values, and then now the number of values in the data here, we can count the number of values to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 5 numbers in this set of numbers. It means the number of values is 5. And then now the next thing, we need to substitute in the formula to say sum of values. We add those numbers, 17 plus 13, it's 17 plus 13 plus 20 plus 14 plus 11. When you add all those numbers, we are going to get 75. That is, this is the numerator part of the formula. And then the number of values, as mentioned here, is 5. So now substituting in the formula, we have the mean sum of values. Remember, this is the formula, sum of values over the number of values. And in sum of values, we have done that above here is 75 over 5, and then 75 divided by 5 is going to give us 15. So 75 divided by 5 is 15, and then this then gives us the mean of the numbers that we're given there, to say the mean or the average of those numbers is 15 there. So this is how we calculate a mean. We can move on now and look at another example here. In a particular day, I'm sure you are familiar with this one. In a particular day in winter, the following temperatures were recorded in degrees Celsius. That's very important. So those are the units here. And you know that we write degrees Celsius like that. So those are the units. So we were given these temperatures, these different temperatures there. You have to calculate the mean, the mean temperature. You have to calculate the mean temperature. Now, let's look at how we calculate now. So we want to find the average of these temperatures, of the temperatures that were given here. Now, to answer the question, we have to substitute in the formula for calculating the mean. Note that the number of values is 8. We can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the number of values in the temperatures that were recorded here, so the temperatures were 8. So some of the values, we need to add all these temperatures here. Now note that it involves positive and negative numbers. So here it's also going to test you now on adding positive and negative numbers. Let us look at what we have here. In the numerator, we are adding all the numbers here. It's 8 plus 5 minus 2 plus 0 plus 5 minus 2 plus 6 and then minus 1. If you do that, then you are going to get that in the numerator you are going to have 19, and then in the denominator you are going to have 8 there, and then 19 divided by 8 is going to be 2.38 to 2 decimal places, 2.28 degrees Celsius as given. So it means the mean temperature or the average temperature in this given example here is 2.38 degrees Celsius. So this is the average temperature that we are here. So I'm sure, dear learners at home, you are able to follow this on how we calculate the mean. So I've given you 2 examples on how to calculate the mean. Now we move on and look at what we call now the mode of a distribution. The mode of the distribution. The mode now, by definition, is nothing more, but we are saying the mode is the value that appears the highest number of times in a distribution. So another way of saying this is to say it is the most frequent value in the distribution. So the mode we are saying is the value that appears the highest number of times in a distribution, or it is the most frequent value in the distribution. So we can give an example again here to illustrate what we are trying to explain above here. Now, given the set of numbers, which we called a distribution, it is a distribution, shows the shoe sizes of different students. Now, if your classmates, now we are going to compare the sizes of shoes that you wear. So here is an example here. The distribution, you are given that the sizes are 6, 8, 7, 8, 9, 6, 8, and 10. Now you are to find the mode of this distribution so that the number that appears more frequently in this distribution, or if you look at them, if you look at them, it's going to be 8 plus, the 8 here is appearing how many times? 3 times, and then the 6 twice, and then the 7 once, and then the 10 once. So we can see from this distribution that the value that appears more frequently is 8. So we say the mode of this distribution is 8. So 8 is the shoe size that is worn by the highest number of learners in this distribution here. So it's very, very important, therefore, dear learners, to understand what we mean by a mode in a distribution. We can look at this exercise that you are going to do with me now as well. You are to state the mode in the following distribution. So in short, if we are saying state the mode in this distribution, we are saying tell us the value or the number that appears more frequently in this distribution. In part A, if we are to look at part A here, 13 appears twice, and then there is 11, it appears 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and then 12 is appearing 1, 2, 3 times, and then you can see that 13 is appearing 1, 2. So you can see from this distribution that 11 is appearing more frequently, meaning that 11 is the mode of this distribution. So for the first part here, we are saying 11 is the mode of this distribution. And then now moving on to part B now to find the mode here, we start by looking at the number of times each number appears. We can see here 3 appears how many times? 3 times. And then there's 7 appearing once. 5 is appearing how many times? 3 times here. So you can see, and then 4 once. We can see here that 3 and 5 are appearing 3 times each. So we can say that there are 2 modes in this distribution. There is 3 and 5 because they appear 3 times. 3 and 5, that is the 3 and 5. So in this particular example here, we say there are 2 modes. The modes are 3 and 5. And then we move on to part C. Part C, we are saying now, we are looking for a mode here. Let's see if there is a number in this distribution that appears more than the other numbers. Now 4 is appearing once, 2 is appearing once, 7 is appearing once, 16 is appearing once, 14 is appearing once, 9 is appearing once, and then 10 is also appearing once. So we can see that all the numbers in this distribution are appearing once. And then if that happens, we say that in this distribution there is no mode because there is none of those numbers that is appearing more than the others. So this is one example where you say there is no mode. So I'm sure in these 3 exercises that we're doing together here, you can see that for the first part we did have a mode. It was 11 because it was appearing more than the others. And then the second part, we have a situation where we've got 2 modes because we have got 2 numbers that are appearing more than the others. So, and then the last example, exercise part C here, we see a situation where there is no mode in the distribution. So that's also very, very important to note these 3 situations that we have seen here. Now we move on to the next part where we want now to find the median of the distribution. Now we, as a definition, the median, we say it is the midly value when the values, it could be numbers in the distribution, are arranged in increasing order. That is to say, when starting with the smallest, it's very important that the numbers are arranged in increasing order. Okay, another way of saying it is be ascending order. Okay, now let's look at an example of how to find the median of a given distribution. Let's say you are given this distribution here of numbers 12, 8, 13, 9, and 5. We have to find the median of this distribution. Now, remember, we said the numbers must be in increasing order. So, the first thing that you do before you could find the median, that is the middle value when the numbers, it is to arrange these numbers in ascending order. And then we have done that in this part here, 5, 8, 9, 12, 13, and I'm sure you can see that they are in increasing order. So, now we go for the value that is in the middle of this distribution. And then we can see here that this value here, 9, is in the middle of this distribution. So we say that the median of the distribution is 9 in this given distribution here. So we can see that there are two numbers on either side of 9 here, which makes 9 the number that is in the middle, or the value that is in the middle. Let us look at another example here. We are to find the median of this distribution that we are given here, 7, 8, 11, 15, 18, 21. Now we want to find the median. The first thing we need to check here is if these numbers now are in ascending order, and unfortunately for us the numbers are in ascending order. So for us now the job is easy. It is to look at the number that is in the middle. Now if you look at the number that is in the middle now, remember in the previous example we had two numbers on either side of the number, but now let us look at the middle here. So the middle in this distribution is supposed to be somewhere there. We expect 3 numbers to be this side and 3 numbers to be that side, and then it happens that there is no number there. So if such happens, then you need to take the 2 numbers that are in the middle. In this distribution here, we've got 11 and 15. 11 and 15 are in the middle, because if you take 11 and 15, you can see that there are 2 numbers now on either side. Then you take the 2 numbers and find the mean of these 2 numbers. That is to find the average of these 2 numbers that are in the middle. Now we've got 11 and 15. If you find the mean of 11 and 15, you are going to add the numbers as shown here and then divide by 2, because there are 2 numbers. Remember, there are 2 values there. So 11 plus 15 is going to give us 26 here, and then we divide by 2 here. 26 divided by 2 is 13. So this becomes now our median. So the median for this distribution is going to be 13. Now it's very, very important therefore to note that if the number of values in the distribution is even, then the median is the mean of the 2 middle numbers. So it's very important. When the numbers in the distribution are odd, there's going to be one number that is going to be the middle. But when they are even, then we are going to have 2 numbers that are going to serve as the median, and of which we are then going to find their mean to get the median of the distribution. That's very important. Now, the last thing we want to talk about in this lesson is what we call now a frequency table. Now, remember, we said the number of times a value appears in a distribution is called the frequency. Okay? So the number of times a value appears in a distribution, we just want to emphasize on this one, is called the frequency. Hence, we are going to have what we call now a frequency table. Now, sometimes a distribution is very, very large. Okay? It is very large. So, for example, we have got this distribution of test scores now in a class that is given there. This is a large distribution here. So, we need a way of organizing this distribution by means of what we call a frequency table. Under normal circumstances, when you have these here to count, let's say you want to find how many learners scored 5 here. What you are going to do here, you'll be cancelling the 5, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then after cancelling all the 5s, you can see that there's no 5 that is not cancelled in the distribution. Then you can say from this that, oh, okay, the number of 5s, the number of learners who scored 5 in this test, they are 5. Can you see that? And then you do all this, you can do the same process in all the numbers, but then that can prove to be a cumbersome process. And then now we are going to use what we call a frequency table, which is going to help us in organizing and then summarizing this distribution there. So we are going to have what you call a frequency table. Look at the 5 that we made an example to say there are 5 learners who scored 5, and then under frequency here we are going to have 5 there. Now we presented 2 forms in which the table can be made. Like we can have it arranged in by means of columns, like we are saying here, or it can be arranged by means of rows. This is the same thing. It doesn't mean you need to draw 2 tables. We're just illustrating that you can have a situation where the frequency table in this fashion, and then also the frequency table is in this fashion here. So this is the same thing. We're just giving you options. So we are saying, therefore, the table now has kind of organized the data for us to say the variable here, remember the variable, we say this is the subject of what we are talking about. In our case, the variable are the marks in the test. Hence, we have mark on this column here, and then frequency here, the number of times this mark appears in the distribution. So I made an example of the 5 because we made mention of it in the previous slide. So we are saying, therefore, learners who scored the mark 2 here, how many are they? There is 1. Those who scored 3, there are 2. Those who scored 4, there are 3, and so on and so forth now. So the frequency is telling us how many learners got that mark. So the frequency table is kind of now organizing this data for us. Even this side you can see the same thing, the 5 there is still there. So the frequency table is used to organize or summarize the data instead of us maybe writing for each for each learner, all the learners now down. Imagine if the distribution were 1,000 learners. You want to find marks for 1,000 learners. You wouldn't be expected to be writing the mark of each learner. Now, in our next lesson, what we'll be doing now, because we now know how the data is summarized in a frequency table, we shall be using this frequency table now to find what we call the mode, to find the median, and also to find the you are also going to use it to find the mean. So our next lesson now, we shall be using the frequency table that we have developed here to demonstrate those 3 central tendencies that we have mentioned of. Now, to summarize the lesson today, we are saying the mean of a distribution is a type of an average and is calculated by means of this formula there, to say mean is equal to the sum of values divided by the number of values. And then we also talked of the mode. The mode is the value that appears the highest number of times in a distribution. Okay, so another way of saying the highest number more frequently, the number that appears more frequently in the distribution. That's what we said. And then the median, we said it is the midly value when the values in the distribution are arranged in as increasing order. The increasing order, we sometimes say ascending order. So it means we start with the smallest. If the number of values, very important this one, if the number of values is even in the distribution, the median is the mean of the 2 midly values. That's very, very important. And then now we are also mentioning that a large distribution is represented using what we call a frequency table. So that is the summary of this lesson. And then now, because you know in mathematics there is always homework, there's going to be homework here. We are going to be using our textbook, the learner's book, Prism Alive, book 2. You shall do exercise 14.3, and I want you to focus on number 2. Otherwise, you can do all the exercises there because we have covered most of the things. But just focus on number 2 so that you are able to do the 3 things that we talked about today. With me, thank you very much. I hope learners have been following very well, and they will be very honest in doing this homework at home. Thank you very much, Nogwasi.
Thank you very much, Stembi. So just a reminder, it's exercise 14.3 and focus on number 2.
Number 2, thank you.
All right. Okay, from 1s and from 2s, that is your homework for additional mathematics. Thank you very much, Stembi, for your lesson, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you, Nogwasi. I hope to see the learners and I'll be happy. to
All
be
right.
here again.
Thank you very much. From Force, please get closer to your screen, sorry, because up next is English language with Mrs. Futhi Mnisi. We'll be right back after this.
Better health, better life. It's another season on your favorite program, Better Health, Better Life, here on Eswatini TV.
Ayinibingelele kunemukele babukele emakhaya kulolu hlelo i-Better Health, Better Life. Lona thulula hlelo kunokuphila masangana.
It's all about our health, our better health today, and our better life tomorrow. In the midst of this global pandemic coronavirus, Better Health, Better Life brings you closer to your health professionals.
Ifake emlonyeni wakhe. Nangabe nje ngidla indvo legcwele mafutsa, lendvo ngidla.
So siyakhuthaza ukuthi lala abahlala nalala banashukela abafunde nabo ngaloshukela.
Watch out for another fresh season of Better Health, Better Life on Eswatini TV. It's getting bigger and better every season. The season with COVID-19 is a must to watch for everyone in every home. Better Health, Better Life, your gateway to a healthy living.
Did you think about what I said?
I did, and I've made my decision. I'm not going to wait for the courts to return my son to me. I'm going to go get him.
Hey, I haven't even touched you yet. Stop being a baby. Kandimba! Get back here! Kandimba! Kandimba! Where are you?
What's with that face? You don't feel well? How did your interview go? Bad. Really bad. Well, I'd like to have a cup of coffee, please.
Because I want to help you out, I
Your
really
father
can't.
won't let you.
It's just that at this time, the sales of the store don't justify hiring another person, Auntie.
But if that's the issue, I could work on commission, Sarah. I already proved to you I'm a good
Look,
salesperson.
I'm really sorry, but jobs don't just pop up because people need them.
Maybe you should find someone who feels as lonely as you do. Someone who knows how to spoil you and likes it.
Usiseka, uvuseleleke, wakheke emoyeni nomculo wetenkolo bahlabeleli balapha eSwatini. Sikulethele abahlabeleli abadala nabo laba sekhula emculweni wetenkolo bahlabela bukhoma lapha eSwatini. Siphinde sixoxisane kabanti ngalaba kwentako emsebentini wabo wekuhlabelela igospel konke kungidinisa simakathe. Ungaphutheka ngomculo wegospel khona lapha eSwatini TV.
Welcome back to our viewers and a very good afternoon if you have just joined us. This is Home Study on Eswatini TV. My name is Nogwazi Dlamini and right now we are doing Form 4 English Language with Mrs. Futhi Sithole, who is already with me in the studio. Already joining me in the studio as well is our sign language interpreter Nombumelelo Hadebe. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm fine, my dear. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much. Today we're doing text appreciation.
Yes, for being specific when you're answering comprehension questions.
Okay, all right. What are you expecting your Form 4s to have learned by the end of the lesson?
Okay, by the end of the lesson, it will be my pleasure that Form 4s are able to recap, to remember what you mean by style and language features that are used by writers in a text, as well as appreciate narrative text, it's another genre, and also be able to respond to comprehension questions accurately.
All right, okay.
Yes.
Form 4s, I hope you are ready for your lesson. And of course, just a reminder that we are live right now on YouTube and on Facebook. And if you have any questions, please text us on our WhatsApp number. Please do not call us because we will not be able to answer your calls. You may please begin your lesson, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much, Nogwazi. Now, as I was saying, for introduction, my dear learner at home, we will be talking about, or we'll try to recall the style features. Remember that we have said that every genre has a particular style that is actually followed when you are writing. We talked early on about persuasive writing. We also talked about descriptive writing. So I hope you still remember those features. So by style, my dear learner, we are talking about the usage of sentence, variation in a text. We are talking about punctuation usage in a text. We are also talking about narrative technique, and sometimes, especially in this genre, it is suspense that is used. So moving on, let's recall also language features, my dear learner at home. Right now we are talking about the choice of words that writers are going to use when they are writing. We are also talking about phrases, adjective phrases, noun phrases. It's a verb phrase, it's an adverb phrase. We are also talking about figurative language, my dear learner. Figurative language, we mean those metaphors, those personification, the idioms, the simile that you're talking about right now, and the list is endless, my dear learner at home. We are also talking about imagery, which is an appeal to the five senses, my dear learner at home. We are saying when actually you are trying to, when the writer is giving us using words such that we can visualize something, this is what we call it is an appeal to the five senses. So by now, my dear learner at home, I'm sure you remember that when writers they write a particular text, they are going to use these particular things. There is style, sentences. There is also language features, which is what we talked about this afternoon. Now let us move on, learner at home. Today I said we are focusing on a narrative text. So just as we said, there is a style for persuasive writing. Remember those persuasive words. Remember those sensational language which is used. Also, we talked about descriptive. We saw the power of strong verbs in a text. We saw the importance actually of using powerful verbs, like I've said. We also saw the usage of adjectives as we continued in our previous lesson. So today we will look at the style for narrative, that is narrative tools. Now, the style for this particular genre or particular type of writing, if it is a narrative, we are saying it is based on different experiences or feelings. Let me pause, my dear learner. I'm trying to say, when a writer gives us a narrative text, the writer is going to give us a particular feeling or experience in that particular text. What kind of experience can it be? It can be saddening. You are reading a sad story at the end. You are like, oh gosh, I'm touched at the end. You are so sad. So that experience has been highlighted by the writer. also in a narrative, it can actually be a story which is frightening or horrifying. The same thing that happens with actually movies that you are watching. Sometimes you are frightened, sometimes you're actually on edge. You know, you can't, there is so much suspense. You want this, the movie or the story to come to an end, but while doing so, there is so much horror in there. We are also talking about a narrative text or a text which can actually give us an experience or feelings which are actually, as you read the story, there is an element of embarrassment. The writer feels embarrassed in one way or the other. Or we are saying, my dear Lena, it can actually be an exciting story. You are reading it, you know, by the end of reading the story, you are so excited, you wish probably there could be another version of that particular story. So this is what, this culminates as the style for narrative writing. No, these are the things that we try to look at. In short, my dear Lena, we are saying it is just an experience that the writer is trying to put across to the reader. It is also told in reported speech. Let me repeat that. It is told in reported speech, or we are saying we are going to use the past tense most of the time. You know, sometimes it can be an interchange of the past and the present, but most of the time we are going to use the past tense. So let me repeat, my dear Lena, with regard to tools, when we are reading a narrative text, we are going to get an experience, like I've said. It can be saddening, it can be frightening, it can be humiliating, it can also be exciting. And we're also saying it is told in reported speech or in past tense, my dear Lena at home. Now, also, when you talk about a narrative text, there are some things that we want to see in the introduction. I know someone is asking themselves right now, are we writing a narrative essay? No. Remember, my dear Lena at home, I've said to you when we began this program, you first have to read and appreciate that particular text. After that, you can be able to use the style, to use the language in your writing. So writing will follow in the not so distant future, and we should be able, whether it's a descriptive text, you now have an idea. It's a persuasive text, you now have an idea. It is actually a narrative text, probably you have an idea. That is by the end of today, my dear Lena at home. So in the introduction, most of the time, we will expect to find an element of setting in terms of place, in terms of time, where the story takes place. Also, we are likely to get what? Main character or main characters. It's just a hint, which is telling us how the story is going to develop, my dear Lena at home. And also, there's going to be a conflict or a problem or a main issue which the writer is trying to put across in this particular story. Remember, it is a narrative text. So in the introduction, it is usual that we are going to find these things. And from the problem or from the conflict, then we are going to get suspense. What is suspense? This is the curiosity. This is the anxiety. This is the desire. We know when we read this particular story, we have a particular desire to keep reading the story. So in the introduction, then, these are the things that we are likely to see, especially in a narrative text. So my dear Lena at home, do not then expect me to talk about the body and all, because just for today's text, we will look at an introductory aspect of a narrative, and then we are going to analyze the text and then see how style and language have been used for effect, my dear Lena at home. And then now we come to the next item, which is now the appreciation of the text, my dear Lena. This is a story. I want us to move together as we actually read the story. This is an introductory part of the story. Let's go read together, my dear Lena. On a black and frowning rock in the sea and within sight of Marseilles stood the gloomy prison of Chateau d'If. In one of its cells along a subterranean passage, Edmond Dantes sat weeping at the deathbed of Faria, his great friend and fellow prisoner. On the bed at full length and faintly lighted by a pale ray that penetrated the window was visible a sack of coarse cloth, under the large folds of which was stretched the long and stiffened body of poor dear Faria. Let me repeat it, my dear Lena. On a black and frowning rock in the sea and within sight of Marseilles stood the gloomy prison of Chateau d'If. In one of its cells along a subterranean passage, Edmond Dantes sat weeping at the deathbed of Faria, his great friend and fellow prisoner. On the bed at full length and faintly lighted by a pale ray that penetrated the window was visible a sack of coarse cloth, under the large folds of which was stretched the long and stiffened body of poor dear Faria. This is the introduction, my dear Lena. Just a brief background around it is set, as you are going to see very soon, in a prison. That is, it is actually in the sea. So let's now apply language features. Remember, we need to appreciate language in this text. Okay, I'm going to start, my dear Lena, in the middle. Remember, I said in the introduction, there's supposed to be setting. Okay, so when we go through the passage, we have to, where is the story actually set? It is said that it is set, it is in the sea and within sight of Marseilles, my dear Lena. Now we move on. Let us appreciate language. There is, in the passage, there is frowning rock and gloomy prison. What language feature is this one? My dear Lena, I'm sure by now you have mentioned it. It is actually what? Exactly. Personification. What is the effect? It is making us to visualize a tense place. How is this place tense? Because of the adjectives gloomy, frowning, rock. You know a rock cannot frown, my dear Lena, so it's personified. Let's move on. We have talked about the setting. It is within sight of Marseilles, which is a feature of a narrative text. Now, let's move on. We have a main character, my dear Lena. Who is the main character? You guessed right. It is actually Edmond Dantes. And also there is imagery which has been created. Let's go back again into the passage. It says a pale ray that penetrated the window. We can actually visualize this. And also was stretched the long and stiffened body of poor dear Faria. So already, my dear Lena, I'm sure you can see now, we can visualize this. And also the fact that was stretched, the long and stiffened body. What is that? There is a problem here. If Faria's body is stiffened, what does it mean? Faria is actually, we can assume that Faria is actually what? Dead. So there is a problem in the story now. Suspense is created, my dear Lena, as we now want to know what is it about this particular fellow, especially Edmond Dantes and this particular one. So, but before we move on with the story, my dear Lena, I want us to answer these questions. Remember, I said we appreciate the text so that we can respond accurately to the given questions, my dear Lena, at home. So the first question for you this afternoon is, where was Chateau d'If situated? I'm going to repeat. Where was Chateau d'If situated? And I'm sure, my dear Lena, you have responded that it is actually what? Within sight of Marseilles. Why is the response within sight of Marseilles? Remember, this is actually what you are talking about now. This is the response. Why are we picking this one? Specifically because we are using a phrase, my dear Lena. So within sight of Marseilles is the response. Let's move on. Now, second question based on the introduction. Why was it a most suitable place for a prison, my dear Lena? Now, when I talk about why, this is now prediction skill has to come in. We are not told that in the passage that it is actually, let's go through the passage. We are not told that it is actually, more suitable. But now we have to predict. Now we have to guess. This is why they're using what? The why question. Now we have to use context clues, my dear Lena, at home. And what clues do we have here? It's there. It is located in the sea. What does that mean, my dear Lena? It simply means that now this prison is in an island because of sea. That is a context what? Clue. So why was it a more suitable place for a prison, my dear Lena? I'm sure now you are guessing the answer. The answer actually is, it is difficult to escape. Excellent, my dear Lena, because it is in the sea. We are not told in the passage, but now we have to predict what we are trying to say. Thank you, my dear Lena. Now let's move on to the second aspect of the text. Remember the introduction. We saw the main character, Edmond Dantes. We saw the setting within sight of Marsalis. We also saw the problem. Faria's body is stiffened in there, and then arose that actually arose suspense. Let's move on as we develop with the story. Let's read again, my dear Lena. A sudden idea struck him. I'm going to repeat. A sudden idea struck Edmund, him. Since none but the dead passed freely from the dungeons, why not assume the place of the dead? There is an exclamation, my dear Lena. So in this paragraph, this is now, you remember, we say there is a problem which is highlighted. Somebody is dead, and there is also Edmund, my dear. And then now we are coming to the second paragraph. Now there is an idea that struck who? This idea struck, who is the him? The idea struck who? Edmund. Why? Because Faria is dead. And what is this idea? This is the main idea. This is the topic sentence for this paragraph, my dear Lena. None but the dead freely, none but the dead pass freely from the dungeons, why not assume the place of the dead? Now this is Edmund thinking, my dear Lena. What is he thinking? I need to find a way. Remember, we have said this place, why is it a more suitable place for a prison? It is impossible to escape. And then in our minds, we are asking ourselves, is Edmund planning to escape? Anyway, let's read on, my dear Lena. It says, he bent over the appalling sack, opened it with a knife, drew the corpse from the sack, and transported it along the gallery to his own nightcap round the head. He covered the corpse with the counterpane and turned the body towards the wall so that the gaula might, when he brought his evening meal, believe that he was asleep. My dear Lena, let's go back and read again. A sudden idea struck him, Edmund. Since none but the dead passed freely from the dungeons. What is the dungeon? This is the prison. Why not assume the place of the dead? This is Edmund, my dear Lena. He is thinking of a way of escape. It is impossible to escape this place. So why not assume the place of the dead? Edmund is telling us, it seems you can get out of this prison except when you are dead. So this is his plan. Now let's move on. It says, he bent over the appalling sack, opened it with a knife, drew the corpse from the sack, and transported it along the gallery. Put is missing, my dear Lena. Put his own nightcap round the head. He covered the corpse with the counterpane and turned the body towards the wall so that the gaula might, when he brought his evening meal, believe that he was asleep. What is happening in this paragraph, my dear Lena? Edmund is planning his escape. and we are also given the process. So you see, with the story, you introduce now, and then you expose me to the problem, what actually is happening here, and then now we have to develop the story. So we've come across a dead Faria. Now his friend is thinking about using this particular corpse so that he can actually escape. And curiosity is in us right now, my dear Lena. Will Edmond be able to escape? Will he not be found? Now, that is what we call as suspense, my dear Lena. This is what keeps the story interesting. This is what makes the reader to keep reading. So this is the main feature also of narrative text. Let me repeat. Now, in the second paragraph, the friend is planning his way of escape and is also using that exclamation, remember, style, my dear Lena. He is thinking long and hard. Since none but the dead pass freely from the dungeons, why shouldn't I assume the place of the dead? Maybe this is the way I'm going to escape. And he goes on into the process of how he wants to escape. But my dear Lena, we are not writing the whole story here, so we are just seeing how language is used for effect. So now, let us appreciate language. What is it in the second paragraph? The phrase, the sentence which I highlighted early on, since none but the dead. Let's move on. So here, what are these three dots for? These are what we call ellipses, which means there is more information that can come. It is just missing. What is the effect created? This is the main idea in the paragraph. Remember, we've said there should be ideas in a paragraph. This is the main one. And when we read the paragraph, we will focus on the fact that this is this is what he does in order to escape. And then let's look at the second one. He bent over the appalling sack, and again the ellipsis, my dear, there is so much which is in there. What is the effect? This is Dante's action plan to escape, my dear Lena. So now I'm sure you understand that when you read a text, you need to understand it, you need to comprehend it in order for you to be able to pick the language which is used, style features which are used, and then be able to bring out the effect that is actually created. So now, let us answer these questions, my dear Lena. The next question is, rather the first question on this in this paragraph says, explain, keyword, explain how Dantes set about exchanging the bodies. Now there are 2 marks. Why are there 2 marks there? When you explain, what are you actually doing? When you're explaining, you are actually, it's more like it's a process, like you are making it clear, you are clarifying, you are describing something. It says how Dantes set about exchanging the bodies. My dear Lena, what is the response to this one? And I'm sure in your mind you have already said, he bent over the appalling sack, opened it with a knife, drew the corpse from the sack and transported it to his own what? Cell. Remember, this is Dante's way of escape, and then we move on. So we take it from the passage. It's no longer now using context what? Clues. Let's look to the last but one question. What indicates that the incident took place at night? What kind of a question is this one? Are we given the incident? Let's go back to the passage, my dear Lena. Is there anything that says this actually happened at night? No. Again, now we have to infer, my dear Lena, at home. When you are inferring, what are you doing? You are deducing, you are finding meaning in context now. What is it that says it was at night? My dear Lena, the answer actually is what? He put on his own what? Nightcap. It tells us it was at night. What else is there, my dear Lena, that is telling us that this is taking place at night? Very good. You guessed right. The phrase what? Evening meal. Someone may say probably he was asleep, telling us that it was actually at night, but people may actually be asleep during the day. So these are the perfect responses: evening meal and nightcap. One of these actually is telling us that this took place at night, my dear Lena. And then the last question, which I'm not going to give you an answer for, because it is talking about now what impression is created in you about Edmond Dantes. This is a character-based question. If it is an impression, this is your own view. This is your own opinion. When you look at Edmond and what he has been able to do in such a short space of time, remember, my dear Lena, he has just discovered his friend is dead in prison, and quickly he thinks about an action plan. How can I escape? So from those actions, from that little evidence, my dear Lena, we should say something. How do we feel about Edmond? What kind of a character is Edmond at this particular place in time, my dear Lena? So what impression is created in you? Now we want your personal opinion. Are we given in the text, my dear Lena? Let's look at the text. No, it's just telling us only about his action plan. Okay, this is what he did. So these are the questions in a comprehension, my dear Lena, that you come across, which the answers may actually not be there, but it is important that you think, what is an impression? What opinion? What view? In my own point of view, I think Edmond Dantes is this particular type of a character. What feeling is aroused in you when you read this particular story? Like I said, I'm not going to give you the response, but you will have to respond during your own time, having gone through this particular passage, my dear Lena. Why is it 2 marks? Because you have to explain. This is my view because of A, B, C, and D. So, my dear Lena at home, thank you very much. Now, I think we have actually seen how it is important that we know when you read a text, you must know that there is style, there is also language. Okay, now, these two, they help one another. The sentences, the punctuation, the repetition, the suspense, the tension, and everything. And also, we are saying there is a language which is used for effect. Remember, we have said we are dealing with a variety of texts. So this is text, the third text. We did a persuasive text, my dear Lena. We also did a descriptive text. And now we are doing a narrative text together. So by now, we have also seen how the questions are asked. Not all of them are going to be literal questions. Everything is in the passage, but sometimes you have to guess. Sometimes you have to think about this, what has happened. Get a clue from the passage. Oh, this is actually what is actually happening. So, my dear Lena, I want us at home to remember to answer the last question. What impression do you form of Edmond Dantes? And as we move on in the subsequent, that is lessons, I'm sure that you'll be seeing lots of how examiners now ask questions, especially based on comprehensions. Thank you very much, my dear Lena at home. I hope you have understood another style of writing, another text, which is actually a narrative text. Thank you, Nowazi.
Thank you very much, Futhi, for your lesson. It was really, really wonderful. We really enjoyed it, and we hope the Form 4s back at home really did enjoy it, and we'll be seeing you soon, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Form 4s, please do not go anywhere. We will be right back with the physics lesson right after this.
At this point, you shouldn't feel as if you do not have it. You have it for sure.
Find something you like doing.
Yeah.
Say invest in yourself.
I am your host, Tianza Dlamini, and you're watching Fame Unfiltered. Good night and God bless.
Emaphoyisa neseve lolu hlelo lwakho lolichamka khona embuthweni wembobe lolifundisa kabanzi liphinde licwayise sona phela seve ngathi indzaba tevikela bona kuqala.
Thokotela uhlelo lwakho emaphoyisa nesive kuso sikhathi lesisha njalo ngabolesine ngensimbi yesihlanu sihambama khona la Eswatini TV.
With the change in technology. Out-of-home digital media is designed to grab the attention of people who are always on the go. You can now watch your favorite show, Usile Breakfast Show, and Tinzaba at 7 on your favorite YouTube channel.
It's simple. You can stream these shows by following these quick, easy steps. Number 1, open YouTube. Number 2, search for Eswatini TV and click on Eswatini TV. Number 3, after you had entered on Eswatini TV, look for Tinzaba or KPS. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell button to get notifications of our video uploads and streams. And lastly, enjoy the stream. Stay home and watch Eswatini TV. Stay safe.
It is important every now and then to check, am I still in the receiving hand of God, or am I in the receiving hand of the lies from the enemy?
Salvation is free because Christ paid for everything, and that's true. But discipleship will cost you everything.
Love each other as if your life depends on it.
As a canvas reflects the nature of a personality or an artist, so creation teaches us about who God is.
We are made great by becoming small. We are exalted when we're humble.
A very warm welcome back to our viewers and a very good afternoon if you have just joined us. This is Home Study on Eswatini TV. My name is Nogwazi Dlamini, and right now we are doing Form 4 Physics with Mr. Peter Ongeri, who is already with me in the studio. How are you doing this afternoon, sir?
I'm good, fine, thanks, Nokwazi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you very much. What are we learning about in physics today?
Today we are going to look at speed, velocity, time graphs, on how to use the speed, velocity, time graph to calculate the distance and the acceleration.
All right, what are you expecting your learners to have learned by the end of the lesson?
At the end of the lesson, I expect my learners at home to be able to calculate velocity, acceleration from the velocity time graphs, and also be able to calculate the distance from the velocity time graph. So I expect them to be having their calculators today too.
Okay, all right, Form 4s, I think you heard that. You must have your calculators with you for this lesson, and I hope that you are ready for this lesson. Mr. Ongeri, you may please begin your lesson.
Welcome, dear learners at home, to today's lesson. That is speed, velocity, time graphs. It is a continuation from what we were doing last time. So I expect you to be having a prerequisite knowledge on acceleration and velocity. So, at the end of this lesson, I expect you to know how to plot and interpret speed time graphs. I could expect you to be able to calculate the area under a speed time graph. I could expect you to be able to calculate the gradient of a speed time graph. And I could also expect you to be able to describe qualitatively the motion of bodies falling in a uniform gravitational field with and without air resistance. So we will include part of a new terminology today known as terminal velocity. Without wasting much time, dear learner at home, on your screens there you can be able to see a skydiver. If you look carefully, this is a guy trying to jump off a plane. Whatever we're going to cover today, this guy jumping off a plane is accelerating towards down the earth. Many a times we are forced to draw these graphs of speed of this particular, I can call him a skydiver or a parachute, as he lands towards the earth. These graphs enable us to see the terminal velocity on how they fall smoothly or finally onto the earth's surface. So these speed time graphs, when we check velocity or speed of a body and then we plot against time. The graph that we obtain, like the one you see there, is a velocity time graph. Speed on the y-axis, time on the x-axis. That is why we say speed against time. We come up with the speed time graph. So we have different forms of speed time graphs for different situations. We are going to look at each particular situation. Our first situation today will be when the object is at rest. When the object is at rest, just like me today standing here in the studio, I'm at rest. There is no motion, meaning I don't possess any speed nor velocity. If I was supposed to draw a time graph, a speed time graph for myself, it will be a straight horizontal line, as you can see the blue line there, along the x-axis. The speed or the velocity is 0, and it will continue remaining 0, but you see time is doing what? Time is moving. So that is the type of graph for an object that is at rest. Another particular type of graph we are going to look at into is when the object is moving with a constant speed or velocity. When we say the object is moving with a constant speed, that constant speed is going to be my initial, it's going to be my final. You realize that it is also a straight horizontal line, as the one you have seen there, cutting the y-axis at v, where this v is the initial velocity and that v is the final velocity. So that is how that particular graph also looks like. Dear learner at home, we look at another type of graph. This is when the object is moving from rest with a constant acceleration. This particular word here gives us something in mind. It is moving from rest, meaning that this particular object that is going to be in motion was not having any velocity, meaning its initial velocity is going to be what? 0. Then as it moves with a constant acceleration, then the speed increases steadily. So the graph here becomes a straight line, slanting, passing through the origin. This is very important, passing through the origin, as in at first there was no velocity, but as time goes by, you find that there is a change in time and there is a change in velocity. But since it is doing it steadily, then we get a straight slanting line, and here the gradient is always positive. Next graph, we are going to look at when the object is moving given an initial velocity u with a constant acceleration. Given an initial velocity u, meaning this particular body in motion is not moving from rest. It is starting with a particular velocity, which here we call u, the initial velocity. So as time goes, this velocity is also trying to change steadily. The graph becomes also a slanting straight line passing through u, and the gradient of that graph is always positive. So you must be very careful to see that the initial velocity is u and it is not 0. And the final velocity is at this particular point, v, where that journey ends. So another type of graph we're going to look at is a similar one of speed against time, but when the object has what we call a uniform deceleration. If you can remember from our last lesson, we talked about deceleration, which typically is negative acceleration. So what happens when we have deceleration? When we have deceleration, the graph, that means that the vehicle or the object, whatever that you are drawing its motion on the graph, is coming down. The speed is changing, but it is coming down or it is slowing down. But the time is always an independent variable on the x-axis. As time goes by, the speed is reducing. So the graph of a slowing object is a line that slants from left to right downwards. The gradient is always negative, as we will be seeing from the calculations we will do later in this lesson. So far, I have covered those particular graphs for motion that is uniform. Uniform acceleration is not always the case. There comes a time, sometimes we have what we call non-uniform acceleration. Non-uniform acceleration, this one means that as this particular object is moving, the acceleration is changing. The graph normally is a curve. As you can see, this one is non-uniform acceleration. The acceleration at the point A, the acceleration at the point B, the acceleration at the point C are not always the same. Unlike uniform acceleration, where you saw the graphs just being either a straight line, slanting down, slanting up, or horizontal, these ones are curved, meaning if I take the acceleration of this object at this particular instant, it will be different from that at the particular instant B. So you find that the curve, the graphs are always in form of a curve with an unconstant gradient or slope. The gradient of this curve is not constant. So for you to find the acceleration in this, it's something we may not introduce now of tangents, but that one is not part of today's lesson. On the left side of your screen there, you can be able to see a non-uniform deceleration. Deceleration, as we said earlier, this is negative acceleration. So, in this graph, you may be told to describe if you see it moving like this. That means acceleration is increasing. But if it's a curve like that, that means the acceleration is decreasing. So, those are the various types of speed time graphs for uniform and non-uniform acceleration. So, let us now look on how we can be able to calculate acceleration from a velocity time graph. From a velocity time graph, if we need to calculate acceleration, the slope of a velocity time graph will always give us the acceleration. The term slope is just the same as saying gradient. So when I use the term slope, I just mean the gradient. So for we to find acceleration from a velocity time graph, all we need to do is find the gradient of the graph. And from the formula of finding the gradient, it is rise over run. The rise will be the change of the speed, while the run will be the change of the time. If you can still be able to remember, we said acceleration according to our formula was final velocity minus initial velocity all over the time taken. That is from our previous lesson. So let us look at an example. Calculate the acceleration of an object whose journey is plotted in the velocity time graph below. From that graph, you are able to see on the y-axis here we have the velocity, here we have the time. When it is 1, it is there 12.5. When it is 2, it is there 25. Like that always. So, how do I calculate my acceleration? We have said I'm going to calculate the gradient of this particular line. You see, here, if I say this point A, this point B, this point C, and this point D, if I choose any 2 points on this particular graph, then I'm able to calculate the gradient. So, I'm going to choose my point D, and I'm going to choose the point B. At point D, we realize that the change there, the velocity at the point D is 50. You have to look at the change of that at the point which is lower, that is 25. So my rise will be 25. This is the rise. It will be 25. Then my run, it is from this all the way to that. So if you subtract, this is 4, you subtract 2. You are going to get 2 seconds. So gradient there, rise over run, 25 divided by 2, it will give us 12.5 meters per second squared. If you use your calculators. Also, dear learner at home, always remember that meters per second squared is the unit for acceleration, and it is very, very important. In physics, once you get any problem, make sure you state the units of your answer, because always the units have got max. Also, for we to prove that this is indeed our uniform acceleration, if you pick a point A and a point B and you calculate the gradient, you will automatically find that it's going to be 12.5. If you take a point B and a point C and you calculate the gradient, it will always remain 12.5. So this is uniform acceleration. So calculating the distance on a velocity time graph, we have seen now that the gradient of a velocity time graph gives us the acceleration. So what does calculating the area under this graph give us? The area under a velocity time graph gives us the displacement of the object for a specified time interval. This area under the speed time graph is the same, gives us what we call the distance. So let us look at an example of a graph where we are going to calculate the distance. From the screen, you are able to see there the speed time graph below shows a 20-second journey. Calculate the total distance traveled over the 20 seconds. How do we calculate this total distance traveled? We have said that the total distance traveled is equal to the area under this graph. So I'm going to calculate the area under this graph, the one I've just shaded there. This is the area we need. How do we get the area of this? So if you look at this, I divided this region into two parts. There is part A and then there is part B. You get the area of A, then you get the area of B. So the work out there, you find that area of A is what? Look at that figure once more. A is what? This is a triangle. The formula of finding the area of a triangle is half the base times height. The base will be given by the change in time, which is 10 minus 0, which is 10. The height will be given by the change in speed, which will be 15 at this particular point, minus what? 0, which is also 15. Figure B, if you look at it, it is a shape of what? This is a shape of a rectangle. The formula for finding the area of a rectangle is length times the breadth. The length here, you have to subtract 20 from 10 so that you get that the breadth will be 10. Then the length there or the breadth, whichever side you take, the answer will be the same. It's also 15 minus 0. That will give us 15. So you can look at the answer there. I've worked it out. If we take the area A, half times 10 over 15, we got 75. Area B, it's 10 times 15, you get 150. So what they were asking is total area. So the total area will be 75 plus 150, which is 225. This is the total distance traveled. If I may go back again, if you look at this figure, particularly you will see there are two shapes. This is a rectangle, this is a triangle. But in order to save time, you can take this to be a trapezium. If it is a trapezium, the formula of finding the area of a trapezium, in many cases, this is the shape which I normally see. This shape is that of a trapezium. It is a half into brackets A plus B times the height. A plus B. A is this part given by the upper side, B this lower side, and then the height given by the round there. So A is what? A is 20 minus 10, that will be 10, plus B is what? B is 20 minus 0, that will be 20. If you add 10 plus 20, you get 30. 30 divided by 2 is 15. So 15 times the height is what? 15. 15 times 15, dear learners, if you calculate that, you'll get 225. You realize that that is the same answer we got with our other method. So whichever way, but always know that you have to calculate the area of those shapes. Dear learner, as we move forward, now I want to introduce a new thing. This is what we call free falling. An object that is moving only because of the action of gravity is said to be free falling. For example, if you are thrown off a cliff, you will be free falling. Another example is from my introduction. You saw a skydiver jumping off a plane. That is free falling. So, as the person falls freely, as you move freely or you fall freely, there's what we call a gravitational acceleration, which is pulling you down. This gravitational acceleration is approximately 10 meters per second squared. So we call this kind of acceleration due to gravity. And it's normally 9.8, but we try to approximate it to 10 meters per second squared. This is because when we are on Earth we are covered by what we call a gravitational field. A gravitational field on Earth is that anything that lies on Earth, anything that falls from its position, it's being pulled towards the center of the Earth by a force of gravity. So, for example, if I take a feather and I take a block, you can see from your screen there, and I can ask you one simple question. Which object among the two will hit the ground first? Is it the feather or the block? This one is a question under discussion. In the first scenario, that in my first tube there, we assume that there is air. We are in the atmosphere where there is air. So the feather and the block will tend to hit the ground first, but the feather won't. In a vacuum is like in outer space. There is no medium of transport in a vacuum. And a vacuum is an empty space. There is no air. So, why am I bringing up these two concepts? No air resistance, like in the second case of a vacuum, objects will fall with the same downward acceleration. That is why a feather and a block will all fall to the ground at the same time if there were no air resistance. But since we still have air resistance, the feather will get more air resistance compared to the brick. Hence, if there is air resistance, like now in the atmosphere we are in, automatically the block will hit the ground first. So that acceleration of free fall, as I've said it before, it's 9.8 meters per second squared, and we approximate it to 10, and its symbol is always G. You can remember that as gravity. So, what are these some basics about the free fall? In the absence of air resistance, all objects fall with the same acceleration. So, if there is no air resistance, all objects will fall with the same acceleration, regardless of their masses. That is, somebody of my weight and an elephant. If I'm thrown from a cliff with an elephant, we will all fall at the same time on Earth, because we are assuming there is absence of air resistance. So long as air resistance remains insignificant, the falling of objects will increase at a steady rate, getting larger the longer that thing falls. Let us now look into this acceleration in this gravitational field. Giving a particular example to the gentleman there hanging on a parachute. You had seen from my introduction the guys who skydive out of the plane. When they jump out of the plane, there are so many things which happen. At first, as the person is coming out of the plane, you see all falling objects, they accelerate towards the ground at the acceleration of 10 meters per second. This is the acceleration due to gravity. But as you accelerate down, there is a force which is also acting on you upwards. This force, we say, it's an upward force that is resisting your downward movement. The atmosphere creates this upward force that slows you down. This is known as the air resistance, and we call it the drag. So, let us look at the case of a parachute. I want to look at this graph of non-uniform acceleration. So, as the speed increases there and as time goes by, when this parachute, you cannot be able to see, but you can see my parachute there. At this point, he has been thrown out of a plane, or he has just jumped out of the plane. At first, the force of gravity is larger than the drag. So, what happens there? The object accelerates. As the object accelerates, at point B, you realize that the speed is increasing. As the speed is increasing, that means as it accelerates downwards, the speed increases, so does the drag, which is resisting his movement upwards. So, as he continues to move along that curve, so acceleration is decreasing. You remember I told you when you find a graph of that nature, the acceleration now is doing what? Decreasing. Finally, as he reaches the point C, this point C, we find that the drag now equals the force due to gravity. There is no resultant force and the acceleration is 0. The object continues at what we call terminal velocity. So, at this particular point of terminal velocity, the air resistance increases as the velocity increases. This continues until the air equals the weight of the object. So once the weight of the object that is weighing him down equalizes with the drag, which is the air resistance, then this person will attain a velocity that is constant. From this particular point, this parachute is going to fall steadily at that constant speed or velocity. The velocity will not increase, the velocity will not reduce. And this velocity is what we call the terminal velocity. So, dear learner at home, to summarize on what we have been looking at today, we first of all say the gradient or the slope of a line in a speed time graph equals to acceleration. To calculate that one, you only need to get the gradient. Another thing we have looked onto today is how to find the distance. The distance is the area under the speed time graph. Once you are interpreting these graphs, there is one particular most important point I want to highlight here. Not stopped. Once you have been told, describe the motion of a particular graph like the one I've drawn there. Once you see this flat region, you don't say it stopped. There is nothing that has stopped. The object is still moving at a constant velocity because time is moving and the velocity here is not 0. So never use the term not stopped. We have also seen that the line on the x-axis, that is speed or velocity, is 0. And the area under the graph, as I've said, is the distance traveled. We have also said the graph of non-uniform acceleration is always a curve. And finally, we have defined terminal velocity as the constant speed that freely falling objects eventually reach when the resistance of the medium through which it is falling prevents it from further accelerating. I think I've come to the end of my lesson, dear learners at home. Back to you, Nolwazi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ongeri, for your lesson, and we're hoping your Form 4s really enjoyed it and they actually learned something at least from that lesson, and we're hoping to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Nolwazi.
Thank you so much. Right, viewers at home, please do not go anywhere. We will be right back after this.
Did you think about what I said?
I did, and I've made my decision. I'm not going to wait for the courts to return my son to me. I'm going to go get him.
Ow, it hurts! Hey, I haven't even touched you yet. Stop being a baby. Kandimba! Get back here! Kandimba! Kandimba! Where are you?
What's with that face? You don't feel well? How did your interview go? Bad. Really bad. Well, I'd like to have a cup of coffee, please.
I want to help you out.
Your
really
father
can't.
won't let you.
It's just that at this time, the sales of the store don't justify hiring another person, Auntie.
But if that's the issue, I could work on commission, Sarah. I already proved to you I'm a good
Look,
salesperson.
I'm really sorry, but jobs don't just pop up because people need them.
Maybe you should find someone who feels as lonely as you do. Someone who knows how to spoil you and likes it.
Why should we pay our TV license?
The content on our local television is actually more up to date. The industry is enhanced.
It is a criminal offense not to pay your TV license and attracts a fine of 500 emalangeni or 6 months imprisonment.
And the industry is definitely blooming, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what we have for you. But we'll be right back just after the break and we'll give you more of Miss V.
Pay my TV license. That's why I can enjoy the benefits of an enhanced industry and keep track with recent transformation.
Mommy, who paid for a TV license and what are they paying for?
The owners of TV set and a gadget with a tuner like DVD set have to pay.
Pay your TV license at NetBank with the details provided on screen. Or use your cell phone via the mobile money pay. You could also visit your nearest post office and pay there. Pay your TV license via Eswatini Mobile Imali. Any TV device retailer can purchase a license to trade. Pay your TV license and enhance the industry.
Welcome back to our viewers. That, of course, was the last lesson for the day. How was that for you?
Welcome back, viewers. That was very interesting. I actually enjoyed today's lesson, religious education, the fact that we have dominance over creation and all that.
Yeah.
How was your day today?
My day was good. I actually enjoyed the English language lesson because they based it on a book that I've read before. So I really did enjoy that.
Oh, okay. Interesting. What does tomorrow's timetable look like?
Okay, guys, tomorrow's day looks like this for you. From 2 p.m. until 2:30 p.m., we have general studies for grades 1 and 2. From 2:30 p.m. until 3 p.m., we have practical arts for grade 3 and 4. From 3 p.m. until 3:30 p.m., we have French for the grade 3s and the grade 4s. From 3:30 p.m. until 4 p.m., we have Siswati for the Form 1s and the Form 2s. from 4 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. we have mathematics for the Form 4s. And the last lesson for the day from 4:30 p.m. until 5 p.m. is Siswati for the Form 4s.
Just a reminder about our social media platforms, which are YouTube and Facebook, where we are live from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. And do not forget to click the subscribe button so that whenever we are live, you get a notification.
Yes, of course. And please do not forget to use our WhatsApp number to text us any questions that you might have during those lessons. And please don't despair. If you missed the timetable right now, we will say it again at the beginning of the show tomorrow at 2 p.m. So thank you very much to everyone who tuned in on YouTube and on Facebook. Thank you very much to everyone who tuned in on Eswatini TV. We will see you guys tomorrow from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m.
From us and the team, it's goodbye. See you guys tomorrow. Don't forget to wash your hands. Bye, guys.
Bye.